Of all the heroes in Greek mythology, one name echoes above all. Heracles, known to the Romans as Hercules.
We remember him for his strength, but the Greeks, they knew him for his suffering.
His life was not a glorious quest. It was a punishment, a penance for a sin so dark it could never be washed away.
He was the son of Zeus. And for that,
This is the story of the 12 labors, the impossible tasks he was forced to perform.
all to atone for a crime that was never his fault. The tragedy begins, as so many do, with Zeus, king of the gods.
From Olympus, he looked down and lusted after a mortal woman, Alcmene, the beautiful and faithful wife of a great general.
He knew she would never be unfaithful. So, he devised a cruel deception.
My husband, you're home!
While her real husband was away at war, Zeus disguised himself as her husband.
His narration, he came to her. And to prolong his deception, he made the sun stand still. From this divine, treacherous union, a child was conceived.
But on Olympus, Hera, queen of the gods and wife of Zeus, discovered the affair. Her humiliation was absolute.
The child about to be born, a son of my blood, will be High King, a ruler of all.
Hera smiled, a cold, political smile. You swear an unbreakable oath?
Hera flew to Earth. First, she used her magic to stop Alcmene's labor, forbidding the child to be born. Then, she rushed to the palace of Heracles' cousin, whose wife was also pregnant, but not due. Hera forced the labor. A weak, sickly, premature child was born first. His name was Eurystheus.
The oath is fulfilled. A child of your line, Eurystheus, is born.
The oath.
Her magic released. Alcmene finally gave birth to twins.
The first is Iphicles, the weak, fully mortal son of her husband. The second is a massive, powerful, divine baby. He would later be renamed Heracles, the glory of Hera, a bitter, ironic joke.
Hera's hatred was not satisfied.
That night, she sent a present.
The snake slithered into the cribs. The mortal twin, Iphicles, screamed.
He saw the snakes as new toys. He reached out his 2 infant hands. And, with supernatural strength, he strangled them both, one in each fist.
The parents burst in, finding the baby gurgling, holding his 2 dead rattles.
Heracles grew. He was a force of nature, stronger, faster, and more charismatic than any mortal. But his strength was a curse. He didn't know how to control it. He killed his music teacher by accident, in a fit of frustration.
Terrified of his own power, he exiled himself, becoming a humble shepherd. He grew into a man. He found love. He married the Theban princess, Megara.
For the first time in his life, he was truly happy. He had a wife. He had 3 beloved children. He had peace.
And this, Hera could not bear.
His happiness was her failure. She had tried to kill his body. Now, she would kill his mind.
She summoned Lyssa, the spirit of rage and madness.
Go, Hera commands. Ruin him. Break him. Make him a monster. Go, Hera. Strike him.
Back in his home,
Heracles stopped. The madness was upon him. He looked at his beautiful wife. He looked at his children and saw giant serpents slithering to kill him.
No, Hera! You will not have me!
H-E-R, he roared, drawing his sword.
You will not have them!
In his madness, he fought. He fought to protect his family. He fought with all his divine strength. The battle was over. The red mist began to fade. He looked around, panting.
And he saw... He looked at his own hands, his own sword. He had done this.
The scream that came from him was not of a god or a hero. It was the sound of a soul breaking. He collapsed, the weight of his sin crushing him. He took his sword and placed it to his own heart.
No!
Heracles, this is not you. This is the work of a god. It does not matter. The blood is on my hands. I am polluted.
He exiled himself, a broken man, haunted by the ghosts of his family. He needed purification.
He traveled to the center of the world, to the oracle at Delphi.
He stood before the Pythia, a broken demigod. How, he begged, how can I be clean?
The god spoke through her. The judgment was absolute. You must serve the man your father's oath made king.
You will serve your cousin, the weak King Eurystheus.
Serve him? The coward? The coward?
You will perform whatever tasks he demands of you, no matter how impossible.
You will perform 10 labors.
Do this, and your sin will be cleansed. You will be purified.
The strongest man in the world was now a slave to the weakest. The penance had begun. Heracles arrived at the court of King Eurystheus. The king, cowardly but cruel, was overjoyed.
My great cousin, welcome.
He had been guided by Hera. His tasks would be impossible. They would be designed to kill Heracles.
Your first task, Eurystheus smirks. Go to the valley of Nemea.
Your first labor, Eurystheus sneered.
Go to Nemea.
Slay this beast, and bring me its golden hide. Heracles arrived in the valley. He found the beast. It was a monster, a child of Typhon and Echidna.
He drew his great bow. He was the world's greatest archer.
The arrows struck the golden hide and bounced off, harmless.
Heracles stared. The lion's hide, it was impenetrable.
The lion charged. Heracles drew his sword. He swung. The bronze blade struck the hide and shattered. His weapons were useless. He was unarmed, facing a monster.
So be it, he roared. He would use the one weapon that could not break. He wrestled the beast. He wrapped his demigod arms around its great neck and squeezed. He choked the unkillable monster to death. The beast was dead. But Heracles had a new problem. How to skin an unkillable beast. He tried his sword. It failed. He tried a rock. It failed. The hide was still invulnerable. He sat, frustrated, until he realized only one thing could possibly cut the hide. the lion's own claw. He used the beast's talon against itself, and the invulnerable skin peeled away. He slung the great hide over his shoulders. The Nemean Lion would become his armor and his icon. He returned to Mycenae. He strode into the throne room, wearing the skin of the unkillable beast. King Eurystheus, the weak king, took one look at this terrifying, divine figure and screamed. He dove off his throne and hid, cowering, inside a giant bronze storage jar.
It's dead! You're alive! Stay back! Don't come in!
Narration. Your next labor. I will send a herald. Just go!
Go to the swarm of Lerna and kill the Hydra.
Heracles' smirk faded. The Hydra. This was a task, even worse than the lion.
He traveled to Lerna, a dark, poisonous swamp. He brought his nephew, Iolaus, to drive his chariot. He covered his face to block the toxic fumes and found the monster's lair.
Come out, beast!
The Hydra emerged, a colossal serpent body with 9 long, hissing heads. Heracles, unafraid, waded in. He swung his massive club and smashed one of the heads.
2 new heads instantly grew back. He had just made the problem worse. This is Hera's trick. He tried again. He cut another head. 2 more appeared.
Fire! I need fire! N-O-W!
His nephew, thinking fast, grabbed a torch and set a nearby tree ablaze.
Now, nephew.
Before it could regrow, Iolaus thrust the burning brand onto the open wound. The flesh hissed, cauterized, sealed. No new heads could sprout.
It's working. They began their grim rhythm. Smash!
Burn! Smash! Burn!
He's winning! My beast is failing!
She sent a new monster, a giant crab, to aid her Hydra.
The crab emerged and bit deep into Heracles' foot.
Roaring in annoyance, Heracles lifted his great, heavy foot and smashed the crab into dust.
He turned back. Only one head remained. The final, immortal head.
Burning this one will do nothing, nephew.
He took his great sword, and with one blow, he cut the immortal head clean off. It fell to the ground, still hissing. He quickly buried it, shoving a massive boulder on top, trapping it forever.
The labor was done, but Heracles was not finished. He saw the monster's black, toxic blood.
He had an idea. A gift from his enemy.
He dipped the tip of every single arrow he owned into the Hydra's venomous ichor. His arrows were now tainted. The slightest scratch would mean agonizing, certain death.
You live, and you are covered in poison. Fine!
Heracles returned. Eurystheus was furious that he had survived.
A new labor. Not one of strength. One of subtlety.
You must capture the Ceryneian Hind, the deer with horns of gold and hooves of bronze.
Heracles knew the trap at once.
The hind was no monster.
It was the sacred, cherished animal of Artemis, goddess of the hunt.
If I harm it, Heracles thought, Artemis will kill me. If I fail to catch it, I remain a slave.
He found the hind. It was faster than the wind. He could not trap it. He could not shoot it. He could only run. And so, the great chase began.
He chased it through the summer.
He chased it through the autumn. He chased it through the winter.
He chased it through the spring.
For one entire year, the demigod chased the deer across the entire world.
Finally, after a full year, the hind, exhausted, slowed just for a moment.
It was his only chance. He drew his bow.
He could not kill it. He had to trap it.
He fired a single, perfect arrow, pinning the hind's front legs together without breaking the skin. The beast stumbled. He pounced and finally captured it. He lifted the sacred, living animal onto his shoulders and began the long walk back. But he was stopped. Two gods, blazing with light, blocked his path: Apollo and a furious Artemis.
You dare hunt my animal? You dare, mortal! You hunt my sacred hind! I will strike you dead!
My lady Artemis, I am Heracles. I am polluted.
Heracles bowed. Goddess, I am no
He told her everything. The madness from Hera, the murder of his family, the penance, the command of Eurystheus.
Artemis's anger softened. She understood. This is Hera's work. The task was to bring it, not to keep it.
She let him pass.
Heracles showed the king the deer, then accidentally let it go. It vanished. The labor was complete.
Good. Give it to me.
You let it go? Fine. Your fourth task. A real monster this time.
Eurystheus was screaming in frustration. Go to Mount Erymanthos. Find the great boar. And bring it back to me, alive.
This was another monster. A savage beast that gored men and destroyed entire villages. Heracles traveled to the mountain. It was deep winter, covered in thick snow. He knew he couldn't fight it directly. He found the boar's lair, and he made a noise. A terrible, clanging sound. The boar, enraged, charged out.
Heracles turned and ran uphill.
He led the monster on a chase, up the mountain, deeper and deeper, into the fresh snow.
Finally, the beast collapsed, utterly exhausted, trapped in the snow.
Heracles, barely tired, walked up to the panting monster and threw a great net over it.
He tied it, and with a mighty heave, lifted the living, squealing monster onto his shoulders.
He walked back to the palace, kicked open the doors, and threw the live monster at the king's feet. Eurystheus screamed and dove right back into his jar.
You live, and you are covered in poison. Fine!
Eurystheus, furious that Heracles had survived the Hydra, devised a new, craftier task.
A new labor. Not one of strength. One of subtlety.
Find the Ceryneian hind, the golden-horned deer, and bring it to me, alive and...
Heracles knew the trap at once. The hind was the sacred animal of Artemis, goddess of the hunt.
If I harm it, Heracles thought, Artemis will kill me. If I fail, I remain a slave.
He found the hind. It was faster than the wind. He could not trap it. He could not shoot it. He could only run. For 1 entire year, the demigod chased the deer. Finally, after a full year, the exhausted hind slowed.
He fired a single, perfect arrow, pinning the hind's front legs together, without breaking the skin. He netted it.
You D-A-R hunt my animal?
Heracles bowed, and explained the madness of Hera and the task of Eurystheus. Artemis, pitying him, relented.
He showed the deer to the king, and then accidentally let it escape. Labor 3 was complete.
Heracles found the giant beast, but instead of fighting it, he chased it. He drove the boar up the mountain, higher and higher, into deep winter snow. The heavy beast, trapped and exhausted, collapsed in a snowdrift. Heracles simply walked up, tied it, and slung the living monster onto his shoulders.
He returned to the court and threw the squealing boar at the king's hiding jar. Eurystheus fainted. Labor 4, complete.
The king was furious. He needed to humiliate the hero. Labor 5, he decreed.
Go to the stables of King Augeas. They hold thousands of cattle and have not been cleaned in 30 years.
Heracles arrived. The task was impossible. It was a mountain of filth. Shoveling was useless. He looked at the stables. Then he looked at the 2 rivers that flowed nearby.
He didn't grab a shovel. He used his brain.
He diverted both rivers.
A great wall of water crashed through the filth, a powerful, flushing torrent.
By sunset, the stables were pristine. The task was done, and Heracles had not touched a single drop of filth.
Eurystheus, however, refused to count it. That's cheating, he ruled. The rivers did the work. It doesn't count. Labor 6. Go to Lake Stymphalian. Kill the man-eating birds.
He arrived at the swamp. The birds were monsters. With bronze beaks and metallic feathers, they could fire like arrows. His arrows were useless. He was pinned down, hiding under his lion skin. He couldn't fight what he couldn't hit.
Suddenly, his patron, Athena, appeared. "Strength is useless here, brother," she said. "Use this."
She gave him a crotala, a massive bronze rattle forged by Hephaestus.
Scare them.
Heracles shook it. The sound was deafening, a terrifying, clanging noise that filled the valley.
The birds, driven mad by the gnawing, burst from the trees in a panicked cloud.
They were exposed. Heracles dropped the rattle. He drew his bow
and fired his poison-tipped Hydra arrows. The birds fell by the dozen. The labor was complete.
Labor 7.
Go to Crete. Bring me the Cretan bull, alive.
This was the same bull Minos had refused to sacrifice, the one that had fathered the Minotaur.
King Minos was overjoyed to see Heracles. Please, take it.
It was a simple, brutal display of strength. Heracles wrestled the great beast to the ground and subdued it.
He then rode the bull across the Mediterranean Sea, all the way back to Eurystheus.
Labor 8. Go to Thrace. Fetch the mares of King Diomedes.
Heracles arrived in Thrace. He found the stables. The horses were magnificent and chained with iron. He soon saw why. They were not fed grain. They were fed human flesh. They were man-eaters. Their master, King Diomedes, a savage son of Ares, attacked Heracles. It was a short, brutal fight. Heracles killed the king. He looked at the dead tyrant, and in a moment of grim, poetic justice, he fed the master to his own beasts. As they ate, a strange calm fell over them. The unnatural hunger was broken. They were just horses.
Heracles led them, docile, back to the king. The labor was complete.
Narration. Labor 9.
Why?
My daughter, Admete, wants a present.
Go to the land of the Amazons and fetch the golden girdle of their queen, Hippolyta.
Heracles sailed to the land of the warrior women. He was met by an army.
But their queen, Hippolyta, was impressed by the hero. You are Heracles. Why have you come?
My king, his daughter, wants your girdle. A strange prize.
But you are a great hero. You may have it.
And oh, it cannot be this easy.
It was all going too easily. On Olympus, Hera raged.
She disguised herself as an Amazon and flew down.
Treachery! That man is no hero. He is here to kidnap our queen.
Believing the lie, the Amazons grabbed their spears and attacked Heracles' ship.
Heracles, seeing the sudden, unprovoked attack, assumed he had been betrayed.
You lied! This was a trap!
He ripped the girdle from her body, fought his way to his ship, and sailed away. His victory, a tragedy.
Labor 10. Go to the end of the world. Bring me the red cattle of the monster, Geryon.
Heracles traveled to the end of the world, to the strait between Africa and Europe. As a monument to his journey, he split a mountain, creating the Pillars of Heracles. He found the red cattle, guarded by a two-headed dog. He killed it. Then, the monster Geryon appeared. A giant with 3 bodies joined at the waist.
A bizarre battle began. But Heracles had his secret weapon.
He drew his bow and fired a single Hydra-poisoned arrow. The arrow had such force, it pierced all 3 bodies at once, killing the monster instantly.
10 labors. I am free.
No. Labor 2, the Hydra, your nephew helped you. It does not count.
And labor 5, the stables, the rivers did the work, not you. It doesn't count.
You still owe me 2 more. And these, Heracles, these are impossible.
Labor 11. Go to the garden of the Hesperides, at the true edge of the world.
Bring me the golden apples of Hera.
This was the ultimate trap, to steal from Hera herself.
And?
He had no idea where the garden was.
He wandered for months, lost. He eventually found the Titan, Prometheus, chained to his rock. An eagle was tearing at his liver. Heracles, in pity, shot the eagle, freeing the Titan.
Thank you.
I will help you.
You cannot pick the apples. Only a Titan can.
Go to my brother, Atlas, the one who holds up the sky. He is the father of the Hesperides. Heracles found him. Atlas, groaning under the weight of the entire heavens.
Titan! Heracles yelled. Get the apples for me, and I will hold the sky for you.
Atlas agreed. Heracles knelt and took the weight of the universe onto his shoulders. The pain was absolute. Atlas, free, laughed. He returned moments later with the golden apples.
Thank you, fool. I will deliver these myself. You can keep the sky.
You are right. A fair trick.
But
just for 1 second, can you take it back?
The weight is crushing me. I just need to put a pad on my shoulder. Just 1 second.
Fine, but be quick.
Heracles, free, grabbed the apples. Thank you, Titan. And he ran, leaving Atlas to hold his burden forever.
He returned. Eurystheus was horrified. He couldn't touch Hera's apples.
Heracles gave them to Athena, who returned them. Labor 11 was complete.
Labor 12. The final task.
Go to the underworld. Go to the realm of Hades.
And bring me his guard dog. Bring me Cerberus, alive.
This was it. The final, impossible task. To walk into Death's kingdom and steal his dog.
Guided by Hermes and Athena, Heracles journeyed to the dark river. He crossed into the land of the dead. He stood, a living, breathing, muscled man, before the throne of Hades.
He did not boast. He bowed. My lord Hades, my lady Persephone.
On one condition.
You may not use your club or your arrows. You must best him with only your bare hands.
Heracles agreed. He faced the hound of hell, Cerberus, with his 3.
It was a battle of pure, brute strength. Heracles, protected by his lion skin,
He squeezed and squeezed until the great hound of hell went limp. He had subdued him.
He chained the beast and dragged it, snarling and drooling, out of the underworld.
He walked into Eurystheus's court. He threw the hound of hell at the king's feet. Eurystheus, cowering in his jar, took one look and fainted from sheer terror.
The king says you are free. The labors are done. Just take that thing back.
Heracles returned Cerberus to his master.
And then he walked out into the sunlight, a free man. His sin, his miasma was cleansed. He had served his penance.
He had overcome the madness of a goddess. He had completed the impossible.
His suffering had forged him into the greatest hero of all time, a symbol that even the darkest sin can be atoned for.